Here's a sample of a couple of sets of chalk pastels. Now don't get them confused with oil pastels. You might want to use oil pastels. You could try it, but you'll have to remember that the surface will stay oily for quite a long time afterwards. Oil pastels often kind of look like this, but these are chalk pastels or dry pastels. These say soft pastels, but often they'll say chalk pastels on them, and they are very, very chalky. If you rub your finger on the end, you could see that they come right off, kind of a dry, chalky substance. They used to sell them in small sets. I've had this set for a long time. Sometimes you can pick these up at used sales, yard sales or something, people getting rid of old art supplies. But if you go to buy them new, you might be able to find it in a big case. You don't need this many. If you can buy them individually, just one at a time, and you knew what kind of nebula you want to do, you could just get, you know, a bright red, a bright blue, a bright yellow, bright green, white, just like that. You know, buy just a couple. So this is a pretty large set. This is kind of overkill. You won't really need this many. I'm going to try to draw the Horsehead nebula. There's the horse's head right there. Remember, it's a bunch of dark gas that's blocking your view of the bright shiny gas behind, so it's called a dark nebula. So I'm going to try to see if I can create a quick facsimile of that. I'll just need some, start out with some red and figure out where I want to put the head. I think I'm going to try to put it right in the middle. Sketch around that shape. I'm looking here at this shape and trying to just approximate it. Remember, it does not have to be perfect. The whole point of this is to learn about nebula, have fun appreciating them, how beautiful they are, and have fun trying to sketch one. It's not perfect, that's okay. Alright, the nice thing about chalk pastels is that you can cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. You can use your finger to smear even more. You can really get a nice diffuse area. You can gradually blend it off using your finger, and it just kind of looks like the cloud just kind of drifts off. You can make this part here more intense and less intense as it gets further away. Okay, try to correct the head a little bit. Kind of looks more like a seahorse head, really, than a real horse's head. Reminds me of a seahorse. Okay. Now I notice in here it looks like a little bit of some white streaks. So take my white and go in. The nice thing about chalk pastels is that they kind of blend them together, make a streak, and then you can soften it with your fingers. And then if I think, oops, I got it too white, I can just go back in again with the red. This reminds me almost of kind of like a lightning streak or something going through here. Probably is actually a lot like lightning, because lightning is a plasma. It is a ionized gas that's just for a second you have a streak of white plasma flowing, which nebula could sort of be considered almost in that category of plasma. Around here. Now you can fuss around with this as long as you want, shorter the long. Spend a little time on it, a lot of time on it. Don't spend too long with it. It's better to do a couple of nebula than probably just one. If you have extra time, you can do a couple. Now I'm going to take a black here and kind of block out the stars, because we really can't see them. It does look very, very odd. It has kind of a little foreheady thing like that up. Okay, I'm not going to fuss too long with that. And then if I think I got too much here, I can go back into the red, make it less white if I want to. Okay. I might want to go in a few stars, big stars peeking through here. If you don't want to get your fingers real dirty smearing, you can always use a piece of paper towel. Instead of your finger, paper towel or a Kleenex or something, and that will work just fine. When you're finished, if you want to keep it from smearing, you can spray a little bit of fixative. You can also use hairspray. I've told hairspray works too. Or you can use this. Workable means that after you spray it and it dries, you can go back again and add more pastel over the top and then spray it a second time. The main thing to remember is to go very, very light. Fixative will kind of tend to remove the really light areas. If you have an area that's just got this gradual shading where it's just a little bit, looks very subtle, it'll tend to eliminate your subtle shading. So go very, very lightly at first. Just spray a few quick sprays from kind of far away, let the fixative settle on it, see how it looks. And you can always let it dry. If you don't like it after it's spray fixed, you can go in and redo it. You can add again on top. But that's the downside of chalk pastels, is because they do come off if you don't fix them somehow. If you decide that you really don't want to spray it, or if your spray is very light and you're still worried that the pastel is going to rub off, you can always store it with a piece of paper on top. Put the paper on and then tape it or clip it, and then when you want to see it you can just pull back the paper, and then while it's in storage it'll have paper on top. Now I'm going to try to draw the ant nebula. You can see how this is like the head, the body, and maybe these kind of look like legs going out. It doesn't really look like an ant, but anyways, you had to call it something. So it's the ant nebula. And I'm going to use white and a light blue and kind of a light greenish blue. So I'm going to start out with, it's almost a symmetric type shape going this way. So the ant's head. And shape going that way. See how there's these streaks here, so I'm going to go like that, kind of take them off with my finger. Got a little blue. I don't know how well you can see that greenish blue showing up. Okay. Now, actually, I might add just a little bit of red or pink color, just a little bit here. The picture looks like it has just a tinge of pink in here. Kind of to highlight these. Remember, I can do that, or you can use a towel, either one. If your fingers get dirty, you can switch to a fresh towel. Texture and like this. Once again, it looks like maybe like it almost reminds me of kind of like lightning streaks inside here or something. So you see, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not an exact copy of this, but it looks really neat. The colors are really bright on the starry background, and I had a lot of fun drawing it. So if you had a lot of fun, learned something about nebula, and came to appreciate their beauty, then it's a successful project. This is the Cat's Eye Nebula. I did this with green, blue, red, and purple. And it took me about 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes you'll see this nebula, pictures of it that maybe go like this, or like this. You'll see different angles, but it's the same nebula. And sometimes you'll see it'll look a little more red, a little less red, a little more kind of white or orange. It kind of depends, I think, on the camera and the lens that were used to take the picture, what the astronomer used to take the picture. So it isn't necessary that you get the colors exactly right, because sometimes the pictures do look a little bit different.